Welcome to the haunted tales from the old rocking chair. And now your host, Christina Spencer.
Well, hello there. Come on in and get cozy by the fireplace. Let me get settled into my old rocking chair and I'll tell you a couple stories. Haunting stories. Stories that are not for the faint of heart. Some of these stories may not be about hauntings per se, but nonetheless will haunt you. Because after all, some of the most scary things in life are not ghosts and demons, but the people we cross on the street. If you're brave enough, keep listening. If not, get up and leave now because you'll never be the same. Don't say I didn't warn you. Welcome to the haunting stories from the old rocking chair. My Brother's Haunting, a true story. Written by Mike K92. My name is Mike. Before I tell you my story, I'd like to let you guys know that I'm not a man of religion. From my point of view, every video, photograph, and audio recording has a logical explanation. The only reason I keep my interest in the paranormal is because of the strange things I've experienced in my childhood. Things that have recently seeped its way back into my life. It's hard to believe in coincidence, but it's even harder to believe in anything else. John Green. I started out the first 3 years of my life homeless. It was just me, my brother, and my mom. My parents split up right after I was born and neither of them could afford a house by themselves. My dad lived in his car, my mom lived at various places for a while. Cheap holiday resorts that would help families in need, relatives and shelters would be our go-to. My mom always made sure that my brother and I never realized the situation we were in. We were on holiday, she would tell us. In the Netherlands, it wasn't too weird that homeless families would stay in places like center parks outside of the holiday season. I only found out the whole thing when she opened up about it many years later. After 3 years, my mom was assigned a flat in Rotterdam. It wasn't much, but we called it home. My dad had a place for himself as well, and we started spending time with him again. My mom hated the idea, but he was still our dad. We would see him on the weekends, and we were living with our mom for the rest of the time. From that point on, it was pretty much a normal life. Birthdays, game nights, play dates with other kids, life was good. After a while, my mom started having trouble sleeping. She would sit on the couch in the middle of the night, staring into blank space. One night, I got out of bed to get some water, and she was standing in the middle of the hallway. Motionless, she looked in my direction. It was the first time I was overcome with fear because of her behavior. She would sometimes break down and think that people would come and take everything away again. I think the memories of her own childhood and years of being homeless with 2 kids finally got the better of her. It scared me at first, but eventually it was a normal routine. I would hear noises coming from the living room and a few sobs now and again. It was heartbreaking. Fast forward 3 years. I was sleeping and something woke me up. I expected to hear my mom from the living room, but it was quiet. I tried to focus on the sound. I heard, and all of a sudden a white shade shot from the bed and grabbed my throat. It was only for a moment, but it was enough to send me crying out of the room. Can you blame me? I'm a grown man now, but I think my reaction would be quite similar if it would happen again to me tonight. My mom ran from the bedroom and held me in her arms. I cried that something was trying to hurt me. The good mother that she was, she told me that it was just a bad dream and that I could sleep in her bed that night so I could feel safe. I was scared shitless, but tired enough I fell back asleep. The next day, my brother came into my mom's room and saw me lying there. He asked me, "Did it hurt you too?" We were really young, but I remember that sentence as if it was yesterday. In the following years, we would experience similar things. The idea that someone would be hiding in a corner, books would fall from the bookshelves, my mom being weird at night, it became normal to me. But my brother couldn't take it anymore. He wanted to live with my dad because he no longer felt safe at our home. This destroyed my mother. Her nightly cries made a comeback, but this time she wasn't in some trance. It was a hard time, but for some reason the activities seemed to calm down. No longer did I feel watched at night. I could only describe the feeling as calm. Time went by and I would spend more time at my dad's place. I made some friends there and I had a stepbrother I got along with quite well. It wasn't long until I started to notice weird things happening. Lights would go on at night. The TV would shut off and turn back on again a few minutes later. I told my brother about it because I thought he was messing with me. He said that whatever was haunting us in our old house followed him here. I laughed because I didn't believe in ghosts anymore. I was older now and I started rationalizing a lot of things that had happened in the past. My brother, on the other hand, didn't laugh with me. He told me that friends that stayed the night would go back home at night because they were scared. Some told my brother that they saw a face just a few inches from their own when they opened their eyes. Some would see a figure standing in the doorway. According to my brother, things got a lot worse when he left home. I asked his friends and unfortunately they confirmed it. I could not help but feel a little paranoid after that. It seemed that everywhere my brother would go, he would take this weird stuff with him. 8 years later, he finally got a serious relationship after he bought his first apartment. It could be unrelated, but I think he didn't want to live alone. It was the first time he didn't have anyone near, and given what he's went through his whole life, I couldn't blame him. They soon had children and bought a nice family house together. As far as I know, he didn't experience any strange activity during the last 6 years. Unfortunately, bad news would strike him again, but this time it wouldn't be considered paranormal. In 2019, he was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. They caught it early so he would have a piece of his colon removed. The entire second half of 2019 would be filled with fear, but we were hopeful. He had a surgery in February of 2020 and he was no longer in any real danger. I wanted to look him up, but life had another trick up its sleeve. A worldwide pandemic. I couldn't see him for months out of fear he would catch COVID-19. After the year he had, I wasn't taking any chances. Then came last week. I finally got to see my brother 5 months after his surgery. I wanted to keep the conversation light, but our good friend Johnny Walker had other plans. I asked him what it was like to be in the situation he was in. He told me he thought about death a lot. The chances of him dying were extremely small, but you never know if the disease had spread or not. He wondered if there really was an afterlife. What would happen to him if he died? Then he started talking about all the things that happened in the past and came up with a lot of reasonable theories. How the white shade was something I hallucinated and my fear took my breath. How friends possibly heard stories and became paranoid when they were having sleepovers. It felt good to laugh about it. We eventually said our goodbyes and I got in the car. I saw his arm waving in between the curtains while I drove off. This was funny to me because we always made fun of my dad and stepmother when they would stand in front of their house waving goodbye like it was the end of some cheesy Christmas special. I texted him about it when I got home. Did you really just wave me goodbye? You're starting to act like Dad. 5 minutes after my text, I got a call from my brother. He sounded a bit frightened over the phone when he asked what I meant. When he closed the door that night, his kids started crying. He went upstairs to calm him down right after I left. His voice sounded scared and desperate, and he told me that he never waved me goodbye. The reasonable side of me tells me that it was a trick of the light, but deep down inside, I'm having a different feeling. Was everything that we experienced as kids real? Did something really haunt my little brother wherever he went? Was this thing mocking me by waving me goodbye? I really wanted to get this off my chest. I just hope this is nothing more than a series of coincidences. I was a bit hesitant to write my story here, but this gives me some comfort in a weird way. If anyone have or had the same experience as this, please let me know. I feel like I'm being watched again. Terrifying, written by Daddy Warbucks. I used to shift work at a gas plant in my area. For those who don't know, shift work is days and night shifts with days off in between. It wasn't a bad gig, except we always worked alone, which could get extremely boring as well as hard if you ever need help. Worst part about it was the plant was located about 30 miles from any town. So if something major happened, it would take a while for any help to arrive. Night shifts were 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. We had issues with drug addicts stealing scrap metal and materials in the past, so we were always instructed to keep an eye out. One evening I was on nights. I arrived and needed to do what I had to do. I got my job duties done and was set up just to chill for the rest of my shift. Now, I will say I'm not a bad employee, but sometimes on the first night shift I would catch a cat nap to hold me over. It was around 3 a.m. at this point, and I started to doze off. I remember opening my eyes from time to time to glance over and check on all the equipment on the monitor. What I thought to have been hours was only minutes. I was very paranoid about falling asleep due to issues or someone walking in, so we kept the two entrances to the buildings locked after hours. So I never really went into a deep sleep per se. The slightest sound would startle me and I would wake up. I heard something and I opened my eyes. Someone was frantically banging on the door outside. Due to company policy, we're not allowed to have firearms, so I kept a long fixed blade knife in my locker. I grabbed my knife and went to the door. I looked outside and I saw a bloody figure standing there screaming and holding his arm. I cracked the door with one hand and held the knife in the other. I asked, "What's going on? What happened?" The figure said, "I rolled my car a few miles down the highway. I need help." Then he went to screaming and groaning in pain. Me being a paranoid person as I am, I said, "Hold on, let me go get my phone and I'll call for help." Then closed the door and locked it behind me because the world is a crazy place these days and you never know about people. I stepped away for maybe 20 seconds to go get my phone. I came back to see the bloody figure was gone. Now I walked out a few feet, peered around the corner, saw nothing. Bloody handprints littered the door where the man had been beating it earlier. The rest of the night I continued to look around, up and down the highway, and I never saw the man. Next morning I hear on the local news that an escaped convict was in the area and all local law enforcement had the area cordoned off, and there was a massive manhunt for the individual. Could it have been the guy? Or was it the most realistic dream I've ever had? The thought of never really knowing is terrifying. I hope you all enjoyed all of our haunted tales this evening. If you would like to discuss any of the stories on tonight's podcast or just chat live with me, join our Discord server. I'm always live on there during and after the podcast every Sunday night starting at 7 p.m. Join our community on our Facebook group page and YouTube channel. If you have a haunting story of your own or artwork and you want to submit it for consideration for the future show, drop me a line on our Reddit page or email address. All our links are below in the description. Special thanks to Darken Mood, Darken_M00D, for all his wonderful art that you can check out on his Reddit page. I want to thank all our brave storytellers, for without them there would be no show. A detailed list of story credits are in the description. But most importantly, I want to thank you, the listener, for taking time out of your day to listen to Haunted Tales from the Old Rocking Chair. I hope you have a wonderful night, and as always, sweet dreams.